Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon here. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. Today, we are back on board with GUNLESS. So it's been a few weeks. We don't have a face cam, unfortunately. GUNLESS is one of those guys that sometimes he puts his face cam up, sometimes he doesn't. He could also be streaming somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure. I know they've been hanging around the Hex quarters a lot recently, so who knows? But unfortunately, we don't have a face cam, but that's okay. We are on board with, as I just said, GUNLESS and the Chicago Huntsmen. They are going to battle against a team we haven't seen in a while. So they are playing the London Royal Ravens. I won't talk too much about this series as a whole because I know a lot of people don't want me to ruin like who won what map all the time. So I'll just kind of focus on this one, but it was a pretty contested series, I will say that. But it is nice to see the London Royal Ravens again. It's probably been 3 or 4 weeks since we have seen them. So right now, the battle is on for P1. Chicago got the bad spawns. They got the spawn that you don't want to have on this map. And right now, unfortunately, they spent a lot of resources trying to flip spawns, and they weren't able to get the majority of the time inside of P1 either. And that's kind of worst case scenario, right? If you get bad spawn, let me go ahead and let me draw this on the map real quick, just so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Right above my head, right in the right side of your screen over there, Chicago got this spawn back here. So as they're going towards P1, a lot of times what happens is a lot of teams will send their resources on the outskirts of the map. And essentially what they're trying to do ultimately is to break down and get this spawn as we rotate to P2. Now, the problem is that if you send so many resources on the outskirts and you're not successful at flipping spawns and you only have like one person that goes mid, well, if London's set up in these areas and they're getting kills, then what essentially happens is you are outnumbered inside of P1. And that's kind of what happened on this first hill. Is that they were outnumbered inside of P1. So now as it's rotating to P2, they didn't get the time inside of P1, nor were they able to flip spawns. So now that we're in P2, it does look like, who is that? It does look like Envoy was behind them. So you just saw a quick glimpse of it right there, but Envoy was able to sneak behind them. He was able to switch spawns, and now it looks like with 37 seconds left, they're pushing out all the way out towards mid-map. Looks like there's a couple out here. So GUNLESS pushed out here mid-map. There is someone kind of in top yellow to his right. But what they're really trying to do here is they're trying to control spawns. So they know right now that London is spawning in Cave West. So that's why GUNLESS keeps looking over here to the left. What he really wants to do is he wants to set up spawns for P3. So the left side of P3, that's where you want to be. So that's why he's looking over at P4, because this is kind of like a tricky scenario, right? Let's go ahead and draw this also. My apologies. I just want to make sure that everybody understands this. But GUNLESS spawn here, and he has worked his way over towards mid-map. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to set up spawns over here. Well, as he's working over here, and you just saw him in top sniper right here, kind of over towards Cave West. But while he was doing that, he knows that London is spawning here, and they're pushing over towards P2 through Cave West. So he's kind of in a tricky scenario where he does want to get spawns set up back here, but he wants to do so in a way that he's not caught, right? Because as soon as London decides to give up on P2, they're going to exit Cave West through these areas. And that's why you just saw him get into a couple gun battles. So he's being really shifty here. He's trying to push out. He's trying to flip spawns, but he's trying to do so in a way that he doesn't die, he doesn't alert too many people. And right there, you just saw as he was looking towards the back, towards that spawn, his teammates came up. So he was able to flip spawns. And so far, even though they don't have a lead per se, just controlling the map, Chicago's doing a really nice job. And I don't want to say, I was going to say in some ways that's more important because obviously the points on the board at the end of the game is what counts, right? But so far, we've seen them lose control of P1, but they were able to flip P2, and they were able to be sneaky and flip for P3. So we'll see how the end of this hill does. They did a really nice job of getting back control of the lead. That would have been a nasty two-piece from GUNLESS, and that would have been a clutch kill towards getting control because now you can see that they're spawning out over towards P5. So if he was able to get that kill, there might have been one other person inside of P4, but we'll see how this ends up playing out, because with the score it is the way that it is right now, they've got like a 20-point lead. As long as you can try to contest, the number one thing here, and they just gave it up. So the number one thing here is you have to have spawns for P5. On this hill, P2 is really important. P4 is kind of important, but P5 is by far the most important. If you have control of P5, look at the score. If Chicago has 75 points and they're able to get 50 inside of P5, so they have control of spawns, they're inside of P5, then you would have 125 at the end of the first set of rotations, and essentially you would have the lead, right? Even if those last 20 seconds, even if this was, so if this, imagine this being flipped, the last 20 seconds were going to London. If you're able to spawn them out and then you get control of P5, that's the most important thing, because you can see right now, this is kind of like the reverse scenario that I was just talking about. As this comes to a close, it's 101 to 70. This is exactly the opposite of what I was just talking about. Now, if London is able to control 50 points inside of P5, which they should be able to, they're getting those spawns. I'm not sure why they're not inside the Hardpoint. Perhaps they're not all set up properly, but had they have been able to get all 50 of those points, it would have been 120 to 101 in favor of London. So this is just, does look like Formal's getting a lot of kills kind of towards the back over here towards Cave East, which is where you just saw GUNLESS spawn. So this is something you don't see very often. Let me draw this also real quick. I know I'm stopping it a lot. I just want to make sure everybody's understanding the ins and outs of what we're talking about. So you saw Formal here. You saw GUNLESS spawn over here towards P2, and he went mid-map. And so if we're talking about the strategy that you want to have for this map is you want to be spawning back in this corner, and you want to be inside of P5. You want to be pushed up, cutting off these two lanes, right? Well, the opposite is kind of happening, and you don't ever see this. So London is back here, and since Chicago wasn't able to take over spawns, they're just sitting in these two lanes, and they're just getting kills here. So essentially, they're just holding London back in their spawn, which is why so many seconds, more than half of the hill, the time on P5 has already gone off, and they really haven't gotten anything. In fact, a lot of this time is going the way of Chicago, and it's really odd to see that, especially on P5. You could probably watch this, shoot, I don't know, you could probably watch 30 different scrims on Azhir Cave, and you wouldn't really ever see that happen on any set of rotations. So that was a nice job of kind of neutralizing the map control that London had. And now as we get ready to rotate through the second set of rotations back to P1, if you're Chicago, you still have to push out this spawn, right? Because as we talked about at the beginning of the video, for P2, you want to have that right-hand side of the map. So for P1, do as much contesting as you can, but as it rotates from P1 to P2, just make sure you have spawns in the back. Then you'll be well on your way to getting a victory on Azhir Cave. But with that, the number one thing that I love about scrims is that we can listen in and hear exactly what they're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn up the volume, I'm going to let you guys hear their team comms and their strategy, and we will talk to you whenever I see something important. So I'm not going to go away, but if I see something I really want to comment on, I'll definitely still do that. So let's go ahead, let's turn it up, let's listen in.
Got him left.
Watch over here, man.
Are they on time?
I don't see him in time. I don't see
He's
him
on
in time.
time weak. Be on box. Be on box. Good trade.
I'm dead.
One is front heavy. I'm trying to hit the deep back for you. Give me a sec.
So with the rotations here, it does look like they were able to flip spawns. Now the biggest thing, get kills around mid-map. You can get kills in these choke points, now you can really control P2.
Stone Dylan weak. He's going underpass. Good win. Two, good job.
Nice 2-piece from Envoy right there.
I don't see it. Yeah, I have your up middle, Dill. I can get your yellow. I have your yellow. In yellow right now. Dad, got him. That's it.
Wow, they're doing a really nice job. Let me go ahead, let me pause it just for a second, just so you guys can see exactly what's going on here. So they were able to get these spawns, and they were able to push into P2. But not only were they doing that, they were pushed up towards mid-cave. Envoy was pushed up over towards Stone, and you just saw GUNLESS die right there inside of top yellow. So when they're taking those gun battles, they're happening around mid-map. And essentially what that does is that isolates you from the possibility of you being pushed back into your spawn and you not being able to get the majority of those points there. So really fantastic job there by Chicago, pushing out and getting kills in those critical choke points.
One yellow.
Top bed's dead. This is getting out of hand.
No, we could try to overrun
another one
underpass
new.
since Dylan's broken.
Yeah, I'm just totally broken, guys.
Should be front cave. Should be front cave since Dylan spawned him there. Middle.
Top yellow. Top
Bro, I'm just
He healed. How much time? How much time?
2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Yo, they're
One
like below
sec.
me and broken.
Now again, rotating from P2 to P3.
Going on old.
Chicago
underpass,
is now
underpass right
nowhere
He's
in
underpass.
position to
Get
have
him.
control of
He's underpass.
P3. So
Them.
this is
Yeah,
going to be
trying to
coming
go
down
deep.
to just slaying
I'm
out,
trying to kill him for you.
pure
I'm trying to kill him for
slaying
you.
power, and that's how you're going to overtake P3 here.
I don't see him top yellow. I don't see him top yellow.
Top one dead.
That was the yellow
I
kid.
spawned close
Okay,
to blue.
I should have got solo pinch.
Got Eddie. Got Eddie, absolutely. Got Eddie dead.
Oh,
Yo, my bad.
I'll just say real quick, this is a really weird map because there are so many hills where, like right there, Chicago was spawning all the way inside of P2, and it looked like London was set to get a ton of these points, and they were just nowhere to be found inside the Hardpoint. Sure, there were a couple kills, but you just would have expected with the map control and the positioning, London would have been able to get a ton of more points there, and that's essentially why they're losing right now, as the current score is 184 to 132.
I'm sliding.
I have middle. I've been map. I'm gonna pinch it for you guys.
Could be beat on. He's not. I have a
They have
trophy.
trophies.
Yeah, they have trophies.
Let's see anything. Got me middle right now, Dylan. Two. One's going up middle fast. One's going up middle fast.
Lay down,
One's
Jack.
going up middle. It's Dylan. It's Dylan. Oh, okay.
So right now, if we're just talking about strategy just for a moment, your strategy should be try to contest, try to get as many points inside of P4 as you possibly can, but don't give up the rotation, right? If you're able to get 15 points here inside of P4, that's a win. If you can get 15 points here, then have spawns and map position for P5, it's game over. So it's nice that they're getting all these points, but don't give up map positioning for P5.
If you want to back up.
One's it old.
Do you ever?
Table Dylan. Dylan dead.
Scraps is
Backing
down
up, Dylan, backing up,
Three.
backing up.
Another one here, Matt. Another one here.
I've out middle.
He's
Dylan
like,
the
you're a
truck,
cool
Dylan,
havoc.
dead. Dylan,
I'm
leave
mid.
me, Dylan. I don't
Look
have
at the
Blue,
kill feed on the
blue,
left-hand
blue.
side.
Blue.
Formal,
Dead.
2P, Seth, Gunless. I mean, not
Sorry,
only are they
rotate
getting the
back. I got
kills
time out.
inside of the hardpoint and getting the points inside of P4, but they
Blue,
also
blue,
were able to
blue
lock
Weskin,
down
blue
map
Weskin,
positioning.
absolute.
My guess would be
Yeah,
this
well,
is going
I
to end
guess.
here in about 20 seconds.
I don't have your help.
I have 7 bullets.
Oh, I got.
Rotated.
They're mid. They're mid.
Two hitting underpass, three hitting underpass.
Three. Another one. Two more there. Two more hitting underpass fast. Nade it. Nade it.
One shot, Jared. Absolute. No.
Naded underpass. Naded underpass. Flash it as well. They have a trophy. Weak underpass to the right.
All right, so London was
Pass to
able to
the
get
right.
in and
He's going-
contest a
he's
little
going
bit,
cave, going
but is that it? Oh, nope, they did get slayed out. They should be able to get back in here, right? With 30 seconds and them having spawns, they should be able to get back inside this current hard point.
Another nutter. I'm going front. I'm going front. Give me a sec. I'm pitching him out.
Dylan dead.
Give me a sec. I literally have kills.
He just challenged Johnny. Trying to make it time.
Let's, dude. I can't even. I can't even
Oh,
get
that
kills.
was
Bro, like this
that was
is
ugly.
unbearable.
He should have been able to get that one.
Top yellow, top yellow, top yellow.
Stop. Just give up, man. Damn.
I know, dude. You're not coming back.
Someone get the last second off the hold, man.
Bro, he's not dying on old. Dead.
Get it.
Can't.
Yellow.
Just coming in the smoke.
We touched. They're gonna be broken.
Interesting
Gonna be broken
conversation to
heavy.
listen to right there. They finally got the last second, but it was much harder than it should have been, right? My guess would have been that they would have locked up that current hard point and that would have been the end of it. But I do want to go ahead and I want to wait and see what's happening with the scoreboard here. But overall, pretty nice job of Chicago just being able to get control of map positioning and then capitalize on it. I was a little bit shocked that London really wasn't able to hold map positioning and get time inside the current hard points when they had control of them. Like the first set of rotations, P2, they didn't really do a nice job of being inside the hard point. Second set of rotations, P3, London struggled a little bit to have map positioning they had map positioning, but they weren't inside the hard point. So as we look at the scoreboard here, Envoy 39 and 19, absolute monster. Scump 36 and 27, and that's really the biggest issue, right? When you have your aggressive SMGs slaying out like those two did, you're probably going to end up winning the map, and that's what you saw here. So if you're new around here and you enjoy this sort of content, I'll put out brand new videos every single day, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you have any comments whatsoever, put them down below. I love the comments. I love reading them. I love the interaction. Make sure you leave a like before you head on your way. And with that, guys, thank you so much. I will catch you in tomorrow's upload.